Hello, I'm John Pawson, and this is the Experience is Everything podcast brought to you by Gray Dawes Events. In this latest episode, I'm chatting with project manager Craig Charles. He gives us the inside track on what it's like to put together and run big international events for some of our clients here at Gray Dawes. We also chat through some of the most amazing experiences he's had running events, as well as some of the funnier moments that have happened while he's been running or at events. We touch lightly on some of his hobbies around films and Funko Pops and Lego, which you can see if you're watching the video version of this podcast in the background, so I'd recommend that. And we talk about a couple of different case studies of things that have happened with Gray Dawes Events, which are also available to go and have a read about on the website. There's the usual quickfire questions at the end, so without much further ado, let's get stuck in. Good morning, Craig, and thank you for agreeing to come on the podcast for this episode. It's good to have you here.
Yeah, it's good to be here as well.
It's good to have you here to represent the men of Gray Dawes Events as well, I guess.
Yes, yeah, definitely. Even the odds up.
Even the odds, exactly. And also great to see what you've got behind you there, because I think there's lots to talk about aside from anything to do with events. The movie memorabilia there, and the merch is a strong game. So we can have a chat about that, I'm sure. So yes, welcome to the Experience is Everything podcast. This is episode 4, and this week we're joined by Craig Charles. What's your role specifically, Craig? What's your job title?
So the official title is project manager.
Very official sounding.
So it does, yes, exactly. So it's just looking after the larger scale events that Gray Dawes do, going on site where needed, and managing everything from start to finish, really.
That sounds simple.
Yeah.
So straightforward. Well, thank you very much for coming on. So what we do on the podcast, as you know, is we'll start with some kind of getting to know you type questions. And then once we've got to know you a bit better, we'll then talk a little bit about some of what you do. And I think specifically talking about those big projects and understanding what it's like to do your role and some of the things that people might not think about, I guess, in terms of that. So making a start. The first question I always ask is, what did you want to do for a living when you were a kid? So the kind of first thing that you can remember thinking, I want to do that when I grow up.
Yeah, that for me, that's an easy one, because I'll always remember it from being a kid. It all started because the first ever plane that I went on was Concorde.
Wow. Heavy, strong start, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Start at the top, and there's only one way. But yeah, my grandparents took me and my brother on Concorde for a kind of an experience trip. We went out towards the Bay of Biscay and back again. Went supersonic, got to go in the cockpit. So from then, I'd always wanted to be a pilot.
Yeah,
that was my dream, was to be a pilot. And to fly planes, but unfortunately I learned early on that I'm colorblind, so pilot was out of the window very early on, which was tough to take, when you've wanted to do something and you can't through no fault of your own, and there's nothing you can do to change that. So yeah, pilot was the first thing.
That brings to mind that have you seen Little Miss Sunshine?
Yes.
So that must have really hit hard, that movie, for you. That's
yeah.
Wow. I'm very sorry to hear that. I mean, the flip side is, Craig, no Concordes now, so it wouldn't have been as fun anyway, would it?
No, exactly. And the next best thing was just being in travel generally. So I got there. So I still get to travel, which is good. Yeah.
Oh well. Yeah. I mean, funnily enough, pilot was one of the things that I kind of had wavered around at one point. I remember growing up, because I think it's one of those where you think that would be cool. It's that kind of human desire to take flight, isn't it, and be up there. But
yeah, and I think for me it was not only Concorde, but kind of the movie of my time when I was a kid was Top Gun, the original Top Gun. Pilot was always very top of the list, and it's kind of, I can't fly, but I like to know as much about aircraft and as I can do. So yeah, it's good.
So as you say, I suppose that has kind of led you into the travel industry specifically. But because obviously now you're in the events wing, if you like. What was it that that made you get into events then, specifically?
I think for me, I've thinking about it. It kind of dates back to I went to college to do travel and tourism, which was great, and then I worked for a cruise line for about 9 years. I did various roles there, but I think there was two people specifically that I think stuck out to me and made me think about events and working in that area. The first of which was an old boss of mine called Michelle Russell, and we had a trainer called David Chidley. Those two were always, before I even moved to the department, around the office, just always fun, lively. They gave you the honest about how hard it was, but they always seemed to have such fun when they were on the events, doing the training to the travel agents, going on ship visits and stuff like that. And I think it's from them too that really they gave me that idea and that that sounds fun. It's hard work, really hard work, but they have a lot of fun as well. So I think it comes back to them two really that kind of put that idea in my head. And I did work in the training team there for a while. And then learning from them was just great. And I saw behind the scenes and how it all worked and being on site and stuff like that. So it's probably thanks to them too, really. So a shout out to them for giving me that idea and that enthusiasm to want to get into events.
Yeah, well, if you're listening, get in touch and we can get you back in touch again and have a little sort of mentor-mentee meetup or something. But that's great. It's like you say, it's fantastic to meet people that you can tell they love what they're doing, and while it's hard work, it's clearly a rewarding career. So in order for that to be the catalyst to then for you to get to where you are, I think that's great. So hopefully they do listen, because it'd be nice for them to hear the little shout out.
Definitely.
And so after that sort of position there, how long did it take you to reach the heady heights of Gray Dawes Events then? What was your route there?
My route and my path was a strange one. I worked at the cruise line, where I kind of moved up north, having left there. I met my wife there. We had our first child, and then we moved back up to Cambridgeshire, where she was from. So when I left, it was just any job to get me up there. So I ended up working in recruitment for a while,
right?
Which is hard work in itself. It was teacher recruitment. And then I got back into kind of business travel. And then during the pandemic, the company I was with kind of merged with Gray Dawes. And then I've kind of worked in operations in Gray Dawes and slowly moved over to the event side. And then now I'm here. I can't see me doing anything else, to be honest. I'm lucky, and I now understand, from those two people when I was younger, how much they enjoy it, how much the hard work in the background, but actually, I do genuinely love my job. It's a nice feeling when you have that job.
Yeah, that kind of waking up on a Monday and being like, right, here we go, off we go. Not having the Sunday night dread. The old sort of school getting ready, to school the next day. Oh gosh, all that. You don't have to worry about that. That's good.
Yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. So, one of the things that I also like to ask is all around what sort of either the strangest or the most amazing or kind of that sort of pinch me moment kind of experience that you've had through the course of your work has been. And I imagine you've probably had a few, but have you got one that kind of stands out above others?
Yes, for me, I think I've been lucky enough to go on some amazing events over the last few years with our amazing clients, and it's actually really great when you get to go on site and you get to meet the clients and the work that you've put in beforehand and see how happy they are and how much they're enjoying it. That really is, it sounds cliche, but it is amazing. It's the best part of the job. And I think my biggest pinch me moment happened last year. I was lucky enough to go to Cape Town for a big event. We'd arranged an amazing few days there for the guys that were going on it. And it was on the first night. We were due to go up Table Mountain. And for anyone that's been there knows that it's kind of very on off in terms of the weather. If it's too windy, you can't go up. If it's too cloudy, you can't go up. So throughout the day, I was getting communications that it was on, it was off, it was on. And it was such a good point to start the trip. You know, everyone goes up Table Mountain, sees the views, and that's such a great way to start and be introduced to South Africa and Cape Town. And I remember we had sidecar motorbikes that we'd hired for everyone to go for a little journey first and then go up to Table Mountain. And that was a surprise for all of the people that were there. So they didn't know anything about it. And I got to Table Mountain at the bottom where you get the lift car up to the top. And I remember just kind of standing there waiting for them to arrive. And when they started to arrive, you know, kind of 20 sidecar motorbikes, everybody just had their phones out, looked so happy. And you look out over the view, and it was just that moment. I was just like, I'm so lucky to be here. You know, these people are having the time of their life. And I think a lot of them will remember it forever. And I certainly will, because it was a great group to be with, which, you know, makes it as well. But the location was absolutely stunning. Cape Town is just, yeah, incredible.
That sounds absolutely amazing, and I think I've seen the some of the photos from and the little bits of video footage from that particular experience, and I had that same, like, I had that sort of jealous feeling of, oh man, that looks incredible, and the photo that sticks in my head, actually, because I have she's not here at the moment, but I have my own dog around here somewhere, is the picture of one of the sidecars having a dog with a helmet and goggles on, I think, was it?
Yes, the dog had to ride in the sidecar, and that was kind of the lead car. That was his dog, that always rides on there. It was brilliant.
Amazing, yeah, absolutely incredible. What a thing to be part of. And that particular event is available to see as a case study on the website, I believe, as well. So if anyone's listening and wants to see some of those photos, wants to see a little bit of the footage and find out a bit more about that, it's all on there. But yeah, what an awesome thing to have done and to have been part of, and like you say, to be able to see your work reflected in all these people just being really, really happy, like, and must be fantastically rewarding. So
yeah, I think that's the best bit is, you know, you work on it for kind of sometimes 6 months, 8 months, and then when you get to go there and see it all come to plan, it all works, it all goes to time, and then see people's reactions to what you've helped create is just, it's the best feeling.
Phenomenal. Yeah. Talking of things going to plan, have there been, I mean, I'm sure there will have been plenty of times things didn't quite go to plan, but is there anything, again, that sort of stands out as something that you can now look back on, at least as a bit of a and chuckle about? It might not have been funny at the time, it probably wasn't funny at the time, but is there any, again, another moment or so that stands out?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, there's always things that don't go to plan. Even the best laid plans sometimes don't work because of weather or anything like that. But it's always good to portray the swan effect. Everything's calm on the top, but underneath you're going crazy to get things sorted out. I think there's a couple of moments that stick out that are quite funny for me. One kind of happened to me, and one was more of a general thing that's not necessarily funny, but it's kind of shows what goes on behind the scenes. So again, Cape Town, we had a catamaran that took the clients out for the day for a sail. The weather was really nice, looked like it would be great. We were leaving, everything was fine, and as we started to get out, the seas were quite choppy, and people started to get quite seasick, and some of them were really, you know, really badly seasick. The DJ was seasick as well. And even I ended up getting seasick. And having worked for a cruise line, you thought I'd be used to the seas, but this was even for me was particular bad. So I think that's where the funny element is, the fact that even I was sick, but we had to arrange speedboats to come and pick the sick people up and take them back kind of on the fly because they were really ill. And yeah, it's just, that's the thing with the team as well. You know, it was myself and Joe, who's my colleague, that were out there. and you just work really well. I was sick, but I went back to land with the other guests, made sure they got back to the hotel okay, and looked after them first of all. But Joe stayed on the ship and made sure that everyone was okay there. But yeah, that you can't plan for that. That just happened, and you just had to think, right, we need to get people off. How can we get them back? But yeah, even I got sick, which was funny. Which
you
you
lost
never
your sea
want to do.
legs.
You don't want to say it. No, you don't want to say I'm feeling really sick. But luckily Joe was there with me, so I was able to go back as well. So yeah, and the other funny moment that happened to me, I'll probably regret saying this, but we were at the EMIS Expo, and obviously we were packing. I was packing to go. Everything's good, and obviously my wife works, so there's a reason for that. When I got there the morning of the first day of the expo, I'm getting dressed into my black trousers, polo shirt, ready for the event. Go to put my trousers on and realize that I'd packed my wife's trousers instead of mine, because she wears black trousers as well to work. So yes, that was an interesting one. Luckily there was a Sainsbury's round the corner, so it was a quick stop, pop round to Sainsbury's to. I did have jeans. I didn't go to Sainsbury's without any trousers or my wife's trousers on. But yeah, it's no matter how organised you think you are. Again, things can just happen on the fly. So that was quite funny.
On the fly
everybody,
being...
yeah, well, yeah, everybody had a good laugh about that.
I bet.
Yes.
Oh man, that is unfortunate. But as you say,
Yeah,
that sort of thing must happen to lots of people all the time, I'm sure.
yeah, exactly.
At least you noticed before you just were wearing them for the day, I guess. And
exactly, yeah.
I mean, I seem to remember once turning up at work. Again, this was good few years ago in a different job. Turning up at work with two different shoes on. So you get dressed in the dark sometimes, and I think it was when my daughter was young, and you don't get a lot of sleep and all that stuff. But so that sort of thing happens to everyone, surely.
Surely.
Yeah, surely. Well, thank you for those sort of that getting to know you a bit. I think we all know you much better now. Unfortunately, you might have just opened yourself up to receiving a Secret Santa gift of a pair of ladies' trousers. I don't know, but only time will tell on that front, I guess. But yes, thank you for filling us in on that side of things. So I think what would be nice to talk about now is digging into into your day job a little bit more. I know we've touched on some of the amazing things that you've done, and we've touched on the fact that often you're that elegant swan where everything looks calm and serene on the surface, but it's all the effort and everything that's going on underneath the surface to keep things going. So let's dig into that a little bit more, shall we? So what are the sorts of things when you're planning a big project? What are the sorts of things that your average Joe, maybe someone like me, or a client who just has a request, I want to do this. What are the sorts of things that they probably wouldn't think about that, in your position as a project manager for these sorts of things are like, right, these are the areas that they're not going to think about and that we're going to have to make sure are covered? Are there themes with that sort of thing that constantly come up?
Yeah, it's kind of the small detail, and that's always the key things that can make an event good or great. Simple things like flights when you arrive, just making sure that you've got the right terminals and flight numbers so that you can accurately track flights to make sure if someone's delayed that the transfer is still going to be there for them and they haven't then got to make their own way. Being aware of particular events that might be happening in the city that you go to. Barcelona last year, we had a taxi strike on one of the arrival days for a few guests. So there were no taxis from the airport into Barcelona. So as you can imagine, the public transport was just, awful. There was queues for hours, but luckily we knew about it and we had arranged private transfers that were still running, so our clients could easily breeze through the airport and get to where they needed to be to their meeting on time. So it's those little details and things like allergies, making sure that people are covered, no matter whether it's a a severe nut allergy or just that they don't particularly like a food. It's making sure that all of that's covered, because everybody's experience is important as the next person. So it's just making sure that you cover all of those little details and make sure that they're spot on as can be. And if things change, someone says on the day that they don't like this, it's just working with that restaurant to make sure that there's an alternative that they do like, and so they'll still enjoy the meal.
Yeah, and I guess that's a big part of the way that you have to work is closely with those suppliers, I suppose. So whether it's restaurants or, like you said, the private transfer company, what are you do you find that those your sort of supplier network are used to the kind of things that you have to ask them about? Are they sort of used to the fact that, all right, or do you find like that you have to do a lot of dictating, and management of the suppliers as well?
Yeah, I think most of them are pretty aware. We work with some excellent suppliers, whether that be for hotels, transfers, activities. We work with some great suppliers that are kind of used to the sort of questions that we do ask. But you do come up against certain cultural differences where language barriers that you have to overcome. I can remember last year in Croatia, somebody was gluten-free and the restaurant had never heard of it. It seemed that, gluten-free doesn't exist in Dubrovnik,
right.
In Split, sorry. So, yeah, it was one of those things that you just then have to find a way around it. And, the way around it was to get the full menu from the restaurant, send it to that particular person and say, here's the list, what can you have, sort of thing, and we'll make sure it's arranged for you. So there are little differences like that you need to overcome, but generally the suppliers are used to the questions that we ask, and they need to know that information to make sure, again, that everything runs smoothly.
Yeah. And from your from the perspective of someone that's done a lot of these projects now and has been able to go out and see a lot of different places, do you have your own favorite sort of destinations that have like surprised you, or that you thought, okay, I'm not sure how this is going to go, we'll see, and that now you would like recommend? Is that something that you've found you can sort of almost influence clients now and say, well, look, if you're asking for something that's going to do, achieve this objective for you, how about this? How about that? Have you found that sort of thing?
Yes, definitely. I think there's locations that you go on that work really well for kind of incentive groups, and there's locations that don't work quite as well for various reasons. And then there's venues that work really well for a conference, that have really good AV, Wi-Fi, great connectivity. And then there's other venues that you go to that haven't worked quite as well, or they're not used to, you can tell they're not used to having a group for a conference. And you definitely have to use that. I mean, the decision is down to the client, but without a doubt, that's why we learn so much and we take on board when we go on these events, is so that we can recommend to the clients for the future that you can go here, but it didn't work so well for a group I did last year because of X, Y, or Z. And I think that's what they do also rely on us on, is that information and that advice as to why it didn't work, what would be a better location. And I think that's key part of our job is to give that recommendation and that advice to them as to what works, what doesn't work, what locations work really well for incentives and conferences, because they are very different. A hotel, for example, in Tenerife might be an amazing event for an incentive group, but might not work so well for a conference group because the AV isn't quite there. So again, it's knowing that difference and tailoring your advice and your recommendations to the client.
And with your role, sort of looking at the international side of things as well, and obviously you've mentioned about the language barrier for things like gluten-free and potentially other issues like that. Are there things that from a logistics perspective that, again, people might not, it's not that they don't think about it at all, but might not put enough thought into from that sort of logistics? We're going international, therefore we need to think about X, Y, and Z. You know, are there challenges there because of having to get everyone on a plane, for example?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, wherever you go, there's logistical challenges. You think of Tenerife, example, is an island. So if they haven't got particular AV on the island, they've got to ship it in from mainland to get there. You know, Morocco, if you need to get equipment out there that, again, the hotel don't necessarily have, there's a long wait to get through customs in Morocco to clear equipment and to get it in. So you have to know that and factor that into how long they've got to send that equipment out for it to be ready for you to collect. Obviously, Cape Town is an 11.5 hour flight. So again, you've got to take that into account of logistics of people. You know, someone landing, they're not going to want to go straight into an activity. They want time to relax before you go out for dinner. So there's lots of different things to consider with each location. And again, the more that we do and that we get feedback from the clients, which is so important as well, if we're not on site, is the clients giving us feedback of what worked, what didn't work, so that we can keep that and build it for future events, to know that, you know, it takes a while to clear customs in Morocco if you're sending something there. So it can be done, but you need to send it in plenty of time.
Yeah. I think you've touched on this as well already, but you know, one of the things that, from an outsider's perspective looking in, is wow, what an amazing job, glamorous. I think that word came up before, but from outside looking in, it's like, wow, you get to go off here, there, and everywhere, and you know, I'm stuck in the office and whatever it might be. You know, how much truth is there behind that that kind of facade of glamour?
Yes, yeah, I get it. I get it a lot when I talk to people internally or like friends and family that, oh, where are you off to now? And jet setting around. And, you know, don't get me wrong, as I've said, I love my job and I feel very lucky to have the job I have and to travel. But you do work extremely hard. You know, we will sometimes be working from 7, 8 o'clock in the morning to make sure that buses are ready to go on time for people to get to the activities. Then we have to go ahead to restaurants, to activities before clients get there, to make sure it's all set up how it should be, to make sure that a boat is ready, a car is ready, it's not broken down, or if it has, you need to think of alternative solutions on the fly to make sure that something is ready. And then obviously into the evening as well, go ahead to dinner, make sure that's set up, stay with the client to make sure dinner goes smoothly, see them all off, and then get back to the hotel. So you could be working till 12 midnight. And then, of course, you want to make sure that you're still checking emails and doing the work that you kind of haven't done in the day, to make sure that your other events are ticking over and that the clients have that constant support and kind of answers if they need them, if there's anything urgent. Of course, we work as a team, so we look after each other's projects when the other one's away. I think naturally any project manager would tell you that they're like your babies when you're looking after the projects. You know, you feel really responsible for them, that you want to make sure everything goes smoothly. So it's long hours. It's very tiring because you're on the go all day for the whole duration that you're there. But I wouldn't change it for the world. That I would say, you know, in those moments where you do get 5 or 10 minutes to yourself, and that's when you take the quick poolside selfie. Yeah, it's worth it, and that's what everyone sees on Instagram, isn't it? It's like with anything, you see a picture and it looks amazing, but the backside of it and all the work that goes in is incredible from all of the team. You know, me, Joe, but also the meetings management team that help us out, the management and stuff like that, and obviously the client as well. You know, there's a lot that goes into it from their side to tell us what they like, what they want to do. But yeah, it's an incredible. There's worse places to go to work than Cape Town, Dubrovnik, and stuff like that every day. So
yeah, well, it sounds like an incredible amount of plates to be spun at once, and kind of that consistently being one step ahead of everyone else that's there. You know, like you say, you got to be at the restaurant before they are. You got to be doing this before they are. So yeah, I think that dispels some of the glamour myth, at least, until you put your next picture up of, you know, being poolside, you know, in that 5 minutes that you get.
It's also that bit of honesty with the client when you're on site, because like the catamaran, it doesn't always go to plan. Even the best plans can sometimes get deviated, but it's being ready and having those contacts that when someone's ill and the client says, yeah, I think we need to get people off the boat, fine, leave it with me, and you're on it. You're looking after it. You're calling boats to get them there, and then the client doesn't have to worry about it. That's what we're on site for. Is we're there to do all of that so they can enjoy the trip and look after their staff that are there. And yeah, that's kind of the key to it.
Real peace of mind, isn't it? It's real, hands off. Definitely. Peace of mind, and you've got everything covered. You know, you're all over it. But yeah, I think it's clear that, you know, it's not a walk in the park. I think that's the thing. Well, it's really, really good to sort of get into that and understand, you know, all the facets of it and all the different things that you guys kind of have to be responsible for. But of course, we've touched on the surface of such a multitude of things that you must have to do. So it's fascinating and sounds like a very rewarding opportunity for those people that it would fit as well. And I guess that's the thing. So thank you for that. That's great. We usually do a little quickfire questions section as well. So if that's okay with you, we'll do a little quickfire questions before we close for the day.
Quickfire questions.
I think some of them might be coming from things that I can see in your space there at the moment. So, working from home, working from the office, or working on site?
On site.
Yeah. After everything you've just told us, how could it be anything? How could it be anything but?
No, exactly. I mean, it's great to be at home. Obviously, that has its benefits. Office has its benefits with your colleagues, but when you're on site, that's and even when things don't go right, that's the best place to be, because you're in front of the client. You can talk to them and you can resolve issues quickly. So yeah, definitely on site.
Good. Iron Man or Thor?
Thor.
Oh, okay, yeah, fair enough. I mean, he is a god, I suppose. So,
well, yeah, Thor Ragnarok is my favourite movie. So I've lost count the amount of times I've watched that movie over and over again. So yeah, it's got to be Thor.
Got to be Thor. And in a similar vein, Lego or Funko Pops?
Lego.
Lego, yeah. I mean, it's classic, isn't it? What's your piece to the resistance? I can't think of the phrase. What's your favourite piece?
To resistance. My favourite bit.
What's your favourite?
I've got a few, to be honest. I think just behind me here is the Guardians of the Galaxy ship. That's incredible. But also just over here is the Daily Bugle from Spider-Man, and that's probably my favourite bit. It was great to build, which is half the fun, but also it looks incredible standing there. And the great thing with Lego is it only goes up. You know, you can resell stuff and make some money. So that's what I keep telling myself anyway.
I was going to say, you could, but is that ever going to...
It won't, no.
It's good to get a glimpse into, you know, and I think that's the thing with talking to people on Teams and people work from home. You do get to sort of see a bit of a glimpse into, you know, what they're like outside of work and stuff. So it's nice to see that. So quickfire questions, back onto it. Tea or coffee, or neither?
Tea.
Tea, okay.
It's a bit specific, but tea, the way my wife makes it. Anywhere else, coffee. She's from Yorkshire, so she makes a good cup of tea, you see.
Good brew,
but yeah, exactly. But otherwise, when you're on site or in a different country, always coffee. The tea is never the same.
It's never like home, is it? Is it? No. I bet it's Yorkshire tea bags then as well, is it? At home?
Yeah, it's good. It's good tea.
It's got to be Yorkshire tea. Lovely. International project or UK-based project?
I would say international.
There was some hesitation though, and I was expecting that to almost be international. You know, again, given the stuff we've spoken about, but hesitation.
Yeah, I think because there's, you look at EMIS, for example, there's some amazing events you can do in the UK and create just as much of a wow moment for people as you can internationally. But obviously, I guess with anyone, when you go away to international events, it's mostly places people haven't been before. You've got a flight, you've got the sun normally, which you don't often get here. So yeah, but UK events can be just as exciting, and there's so many places in the UK I haven't visited yet, let alone internationally.
That is a good point, actually. You never kind of visit your own backyard, do you? So it's
No.
Well, I think we've covered enough quickfire questions there as well. Partly because I can't keep coming up with quickfire questions. I can't. They don't pop into my head quick enough. So yeah, I think that's been a really fascinating insight into projects. I've certainly learned a hell of a lot today from you around that graceful swan analogy of just how much effort and work goes into it. But it's very clear that you've got a real passion for it, and I think it's that's great to see. That it's a really rewarding position to be in as well. So it just remains for me to say thank you very, very much again for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you may well be invited back. You never know. There's only so many people to get around, and there's plenty of stuff to talk about. So it's been great to chat with you, Craig, and thanks so much for agreeing to do the podcast. And the next episode of the Experience is Everything podcast will also be out soon, I'm sure. I just need to find the next willing Gray Dawes Eventser. Yes, feedback to all the team about how great this experience was for you, and we will be back soon with the next episode as well. Thank you very much, Craig, and take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye, John.